Okay, so there's about to be a massive conversation surrounding feminism because Sydney Sweeney just made some disparaging comments about feminism. And because of her platform, it's going to turn into a massive think piece. So hooray, the think pieces are back. And what I want to do is talk about what feminism is from a historical / textbook context, because I think when we're operating on a different set of facts, we can't actually have a fair conversation. This is probably obvious, but first wave feminism was kind of like the 1900s, when women first got the right to sign legal documents, own property, keep their children, get a divorce, the right to vote. White women got the right to vote. Suffrage, things like that. That is like first wave feminism. Second wave feminism is probably in our minds what we go to the most, depending on your age group, as far as when we think of what feminism is. This is the 60s and the 70s. This is Bell Hooks, Angela Davis, Betty Friedan, Gloria Steinem. These are the women that kind of gave us our more recent rights, abortion, black women getting the right to vote, okay, ERA, that started getting talked about, the civil rights movement. But a lot of the issues with second wave feminism is it was kind of taken over by white women. And it's really looked at as choice feminism. This is when you hear women talk about oh, I can do whatever I want. I can wear a short skirt. I can do, I can work. I can have a credit card. This is that's a lot of that is second wave feminism, because that's also when women had the right to get a bank account in 1974. That also, by the way, does not mean it was easy. Just because that law was passed does not mean that local banks made it easy. That also doesn't mean that they allowed black women to get those bank accounts. So please look into that. I also do talks on this, so if you're actually interested in this, I'm more than happy to do a small series. Third wave feminism kind of took off in the 90s, and this is really the start of more intersectionality of feminism and the start of most of what we see today. But this is when women started to pay more attention to the fact that feminism does affect men, especially when it comes to our judicial system and the prison system, and how, really trying to bring men back into the fold. Because in the 60s and the 70s, women really pushed men out of the feminism movement. This was also a really big time for the way feminists affected the ecosystem around us. Vegetarianism, veganism, seen as, more Mother Earth, became massive in, the later 90s, early 2000s, and how, women became a big proponent of the climate crisis. It wasn't until about the 2010s when the fourth wave of feminism started to change, and this is roughly the Me Too movement and more political appointees that were doing more progressive movements. Now, certainly we've had but we've had women in politics. We've had, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was certainly a second wave feminist. We had Madeleine Albright. Hillary Clinton was a second to third wave feminist, depending on when you think of the cutoffs. But fourth wave is really when we start to see more women, and especially women of color, start to take on positions of power and decision-making roles. I wouldn't say that we are fully engrossed in fourth wave feminism, and most people don't talk about it, especially when you look at women who look like me, who haven't even really moved out of second wave feminism. Because once women who look like me, white women, get their rights and get what they need, they pretty much abandon movements. So, anyway, that was I did it as fast as I could, okay? But that is a kind of down and dirty of feminism. I have no doubt that I left things out. These are things that I normally take more than an hour to talk about. So I think it's really important that we operate from a place of general understanding. I think it's really important that we try and weed out second wave feminists who want to leave behind, especially women of color, in this conversation. I'm loving that this conversation is happening because I think feminism is so, so important. If you are still watching, man, I love you. But anyway, take this information and then make your think piece.